Hey, everybody. It's Saturday night, and we're doing a live here at Grumpy Acres. This is Grumpy G. For you, those of you that don't know me, if you're new here, go ahead and put something in the chat. Make sure if you're on YouTube, get in that live chat. We want to be able to see all the chats going on. Just say hi, give me a 5x5. Let me know that the sound is good, and we'll start talking about what this live stream is all about. So you're going to get a chance tonight to crawl inside my head with me and reach in there and get the gray part all over your fingertips. Hey, Rescue, you want to come up with me tonight, man? I'll be more than happy to have some company up here, have some direct feedback, not going through the chat. But anyway, so here's what happened. I firmly believe in understanding the why of things. Why do we believe what we believe? Why do we behave the way we behave? Why do we prepare? Why do we homestead? Why do we do all this stuff? Because I honestly think that if you don't understand the why of things, you can't do the how and the what's of anything. Preparedness, just going through your life. If you don't have a why, then you're going to go around aimlessly. And you see that with tons of people. They just don't give any reflection on why they believe what they believe, and it shows. Yeah, and the other part is I'm an amateur fan of human psychology. I think it is a fascinating subject, and it's what drives us to do what we do. The way our brain works is just completely a wondrous thing, and I love delving into it. Now, if you're new here, or if you're not new, I am not an expert. I am not a trained psychotherapist. I am not doing any of this stuff in a professional manner. This is all just somebody who enjoys this type of thing, and I thought I'd share the experience with you. All right. So here's what happened. I had a dream. I have a dream. That was me. And I have dreams all the time. Normally, I don't remember them with any clarity. I'll have snippets, or it'll be really fuzzy. It'll be like something that happened 20 years ago that you really can't grasp all the details. Well, I had a dream the other day that was extremely vivid, and I remembered every single detail. And I think it's because I got up in the middle of the night, crawled back in bed, only had about an hour and a half, 2 hours more to sleep before I had to get up. And I went into REM sleep, the rapid eye movement sleep. And that's when you get all your dreaming, when you start doing that. And I think because I did it so late in the night and I woke up so quickly afterwards, I don't think I had a chance to have the details fade away like they normally do. So anyway, I'm sitting at work the next day, and I'll tell you what the dream was here in a little bit. All right. I'll tell you about the dream in a little bit. So I was sitting at work, and I was waiting for some software to load on a computer, which is a majority of my time, and it gets really boring. So I was like, let's do some dream interpretation. Let's deconstruct this dream and figure out what it meant, because it was a very interesting dream, at least from my perspective. Hey, Andy, good evening. I didn't say hi. Hogs showed up. No Quarter showed up. Of course, I said hi to Rescue earlier. But so I was sitting there, and, living in America, we have access to the internet. And being an IT guy, I have it at work. So I decided I was going to do it. But I started thinking about it. I was like, man, going out and looking all this stuff up is going to be really, really time consuming. And I debated it, and then it dawned on me. Why don't I use AI to assist me? All right, now hold on. Normally the crowd that watches my videos, you mention AI, and all of a sudden there's a bunch of negative stuff and all this. And some of it's well-founded. But here's my take on AI. Number one, AI is not artificial intelligence. They call it AI, but it is not artificial intelligence by any stretch of the imagination. What it is it's a very, very, very sophisticated answer or question and response system. So you ask it a question or you give it a request, and the algorithm, the programming, is able to formulate an answer that is very, very sophisticated. It's way better than anything we've had in since the beginning of the data age. All right. The thing about AI, it's like any other programming: garbage in, garbage out. And I firmly believe that conservatives and patriots should be interacting with AI. Now, if you're afraid of AI because of the Terminator movie and all that, here's the deal: that cat's out of the bag. All right. It is completely out of the bag. And if Skynet's going to come and start the robot holocaust, it's eventually going to happen. Unless we interact with it and we make it so when it does become fully cognizant, it's got the, sure, hang on a second, rescue. But we want to make sure that when it becomes fully cognizant, it's got the moral and ethical constraints put on it to keep it from wanting to annihilate the human race. However richly deserved that may be, we don't want it to happen. At least I don't want it to happen in my lifetime. I don't want it to happen into my offspring, my progeny. Okay. So we want to get in and we want to use AI because we want to help configure it. Hey, Tiger, we want to help it form the you know what was Andy? I think Andy put that up there. Yes, we want to help that multifaceted feature federated search and response system. We want to help develop that, and we got a guest. What's up, Rescue?
Buddy? What's going
on?
Not
much, man. Not much. But I was just, I'm trying to tell everybody not to be afraid of AI at this point, because I did use AI to do this. All right. And if you got any comments or questions about what I'm saying or anything that's going on, you feel free to interrupt me and let me know. I think I think having somebody up here to bounce this off of and give comments is really important. So anyway, I decided to use ChatGPT, and the results were very interesting. They were not what I expected. And here's the key to this. I've been using AI for a couple of years. When it first came out, I started dabbling in it. And one thing I realized was that the more granular your request or your question, the better the response is. Right? So you have to formulate it properly. If you ask a very simple question, you're going to get a very simple and very broad answer. So if you want a detailed answer, if you want it to go out and crawl the internet and give you a detailed answer, you have to give it a detailed question or detailed request. Okay.
You have to be specific, otherwise. And there's actually the main point difference between fearing this AI. That's that sentient type thing, consciousness. A person, you would ask a question, and then based off of them, they would give you a response if they were like an informative person. But AI just goes, it feeds off of the way you ask the questions. I play around with the Grok a little bit on X, and it's cool researching stuff, because it will, to me, AI is an educated web crawler. But I see that the internet is just a network, and it started off with web crawlers to gather data and to keep track of DNS address, all this stuff. So it's enhanced. Well, now this is just having a super smart person that you can kind of go, okay, I really want to know about this, and it can actually go and find all the information, and you don't spend countless days and months of like going from address to address, reading this. It just gathers it. And I kind of like Grok because it'll list out like kind of like categories of your question that you're asking.
Mhm.
It'll break it down that way. It'll pick up on keywords in your question. So it'll kind of go, in case you want to know, and it'll break it down, and it breaks it all the way down until finally you get like a summarized version or a listed out explanation. It's pretty cool.
And one thing I've noticed from Planner, I've done Grok, I've done Gemini, I did, there's another one, I can't remember it, but ChatGPT is the one I use the most. I like the interface, the interface it uses. You bring up a good point. I may run this through Grok and see what Grok says, because I guarantee you the answer is going to be similar but distinctly different.
Yep.
All right. So here's how this whole thing started. Here's how the conversation started. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, can ChatGPT do dream interpretation using online psychotherapy resources? And the response was, yes, it can. But there's some caveats. There's a lot of caveats here. And the reason why I'm sharing the caveats with you is because if you decide to do this, you have to understand the limitations on what you're going to get back. Okay, so what ChatGPT can do, use established psychological frameworks like Freudian, Jungian, cognitive theories to help you explore possible meanings. It can reference publicly available psychotherapy and dream analysis resources to inform interpretations. It can help you journal or reflect on patterns, symbols, and emotions in your dream. All very analytical stuff. It can provide guided questions to help you make personal connections with dream content. And the last one is it offers neutral interpretations based on symbolic or cultural themes with the attention to your specific context. Now, what it can't do, and this is important, and it's kind of funny the way it words it. So it cannot provide personalized psychotherapy or clinical diagnoses. This requires a licensed professional. It cannot access or cite paywalled or private psychotherapy databases unless provided by you. So if you're a professional and you've got access to that, you can provide that access. And then finally, this is the one I like. It can't replace therapeutic relationships or deeper psychological care. So it's basically telling you, and we'll you walk through this, but we're not going to help you.
Right. No, not yet, Tiger. We just started.
No, Tiger, I have not said the dream. I wanted to lay the groundwork here before I got into the dream because I wanted everybody to understand how this transpired. Okay, so now here's the dream, guys. So I'm in a dystopian suburbia type of thing. It's not post-apocalyptic, everything's blown up. It's very shabby, and there's multiple families living in each house. They're kind of like 2-story brownstone type of buildings. All right. There's an announcement that they're going to do. The only way I can describe it is a culling. And what they're going to do is they're going to take all the old people, and they start in one location, and then they go to another location. And I don't know why they had to do this walk. I get the impression it was so they could be celebrated because they're sacrificing for the whatever. And I didn't realize it till later. So that doesn't end up in the analysis. But anyway, so they want family members to execute the elderly whenever they get there. And they're going to use a guillotine. My mom is one of the elderly people that has to walk. Now, for reference, I lost my mom, Yoda, how many years ago? 10 years ago, 12 years ago, maybe? I don't know. I can't remember the exact year it happened. But so, it's nothing, that's nothing recent. But at the beginning, I'm like, okay, okay, we'll do this. But as time goes on in the dream, and it's a very short time, I become very anxious about it. And I'm like, no, I will not do this. And I go and I start to kit up. And when I say kit up, I was grabbing my ballistic vest, and I was getting my sidearm, and I was getting all that stuff on, but I was fumbling around with it. It like took in the dream, it took forever, and I was dropping stuff, and I was really nervous, and I finally got kitted up, and as soon as I got kitted up, I woke up, and that was the end of the dream. So, as you can see, as you guys can imagine, there's quite a bit there to unpack, or to
actually, it's weird, and somebody might remember this show. I just remember watching the documentary clip on it, and I can't remember where or what, but it was, and I can't even, I don't think it was real. It might have just been like one of those psychosis stories, but it was a village. It was a town, and they had this culling, and it was kind of just like that. And in the documentary, it shows them that they're gathered around this thing, and these kids, all the kids are like, yeah, and people are like, yeah, until all of a sudden that person, that person gets shown. Well, then it's her husband's like, oh man. And then her kids are like, oh man, I don't know, we can't. And so there's that whole, and it was just, as you're talking, I'm like, wait a minute, I think I've seen it. There was something like that. And it was some kind of culling thing that they did.
Well, you had the Twilight Zone episode of the called The Lottery, the original series, and that's what that was. And the lady was all for it until her number was called. Till she won the lottery, and she was one of the ones that be called. But I know where in retrospect, I know where the walking part came from. I know the imagery, not the symbolism, but I know where the imagery came from, because they made a movie from Stephen King's novella, The Long Walk, which is one of my favorite Stephen King stories. The whole idea of it is just, and if you don't know what it is, go watch the trailer for it. It does a pretty good explaining of the story right there. That they give a good synopsis in the trailer. It's actually one of the better trailers I've seen from Hollywood in a while. So I know that's where it came from. I don't know the symbology though, or I didn't know what it.
Hey, Skanes.
So Skanes woke up. So here's the response I put in the chat. I said, here's the setting, dystopia, and I detailed it just like I detailed it to you guys. Okay, so I asked ChatGPT, what's the verdict? And it responded, that's a powerful, emotionally loaded dream, grim in its setting, morally wrenching in its dilemma, and defiant in its conclusion. Interpreted through multiple psychological and symbolic frameworks, it touches on themes of conscience, resistance, generational duty, institutional cruelty, and personal transformation. My ears perked up. I read that and I was like, oh, okay. So here's the dream interpretation. So it used the Jungian theory, Carl Jung. It used the Freudian framework, and then it used the modern cognitive trauma informed lens. And I'd never heard of that one. I kind of read up on it. It's I'm not sure about that one. But anyway, here's the Jungian response. Okay, Carl Jung. So it's about archetypes, collective unconsciousness, and the shadow work. Okay, the dystopian setting may reflect a perception that the current world, externally or internally, has deteriorated. Does sound kind of like a theme of ours here at the channel, doesn't it? It might symbolize how you're processing chaos, cultural decline, or societal moral decay. Your mother is a powerful archetype. She may represent not just your actual mother, but tradition, nurturing, conscience, and personal roots. The guillotine is stark. It's a mechanization of death, a tool of state execution. This could symbolize the coldness of systems that demand the sacrifice of what is most human. Your role in the culling may represent an inner conflict. A part of you was complicit or numb to something destructive, but another part rebels. Jung might call this shadow integration, facing a part of you that has become too compliant or detached and choosing transformation. Arming up at the end suggests the rise of a hero archetype. The warrior self emerges in defense of what you know to be morally sacred. Symbolically, the dream reflects a confrontation between decaying collective system and your emerging individual moral authority. You guys want to dissect that a little bit, or you want me to go to the Freudian one? Freud's a freak, by the way. If you get into his theories, the man was obsessed with sex. You know, that's not a joke. That actually was. But okay,
Believe it.
Go on.
I said I can believe it. To me, it's kind of, when you read it, I mean, I see the connection. It's not through so much the books and the official thing. It's just, you can kind of, just the way society is, I found the reference to the multiple families in the house, because you find with illegal immigrants that happens a lot. So there's an association with real world events. And then that collective, it's kind of like you're having to make choices. We're going through a lot of the freedom and the rights and the right to choose stuff. Mm-hmm. So I see that reference. And then the mom thing, of course, there's let your yes be yes and your no be no kind of reference. That's like, here comes your decision. Are you actually standing up? That's your mother. So now what?
Yep. Well,
and like your fortitude check.
And the Jungian framework, it says tradition, nurturing, conscious, personal roots. That's been under attack in our country for the better part of 100 years now.
Yeah, right? It's been primary focus, though, when you think about it. These last 4 years were just intense. I mean, the backdrop, the way the media was, it was just like, holy shit. It changed the dynamic a lot.
Right. Now, listen, if anyone's watching this in replay, or you're lurking and not in the chat, when I get done going through the initial interpretation, I'm going to stop and give you a little reference point on where I'm coming from and why this is so fascinating to me. Okay, because it's important. It really is germane to the story. All right, so let's do the Freudian one. Kind of the same, different enough that it's worth talking about. So the Freudian interpretation is one of repression, guilt, family symbolism. Freud would view this as a conflicted relationship with authority, morality, and superego. At the beginning, Asked to Kill a Parent speaks to repressed rage or fear, often seen in dreams when you're grappling with aging, loss of control, and feelings of being manipulated by those around you. Okay, that one kind of struck close to home, not going to lie. The transition from compliance to defiance may reflect guilt turning into self-assertion, particularly among filial obligation. The failed attempt to gear up efficiently reflects anxiety. You want to act decisively, but subconscious fears or doubts are inhibiting you. The aging, loss of control, and feeling of being manipulated. Okay, so if anybody that's been on the channel knows this, I just turned 59, just had a birthday, and starting to feel my age. Not gonna lie, the body I did not lead the best of life. Did a lot of hard living, and it's catching up with me physically. I'm still a juvenile in my head, though. Fart jokes are still funny. And then loss of control. If you look around and if you're a constitutional believer, if you believe in the Constitution like I do, or if you're concerned about the way things are going, it's easy to feel a loss of control, and then the being manipulated. I spent 2 months in 23 just completely pissed off at the world because I realized that everything that I had been told as an adult was a lie. I was manipulated. I was used by the system, So these are all things that I've actually been dealing with. So the the roots of these things, this isn't something that's just happened overnight. Seriously, it's not something that happened overnight. This has been coming on for 6, 7, 8 years now, right? So I that part right there really struck home with me, and then the failed attempt to gear up efficiently. I think anybody out there, if you're completely honest with yourself, there's times when you may self-reflect and you're like, man, am I doing the right thing? I had that happen last week, in the fight with the county commissioners here in Northeast Kansas. So it's all part of that. All right. You guys want to do the next one? You want to hear what modern cognitive trauma informed lens is? That's a mouthful. Okay. If you're experiencing stress, political disillusionment, or moral conflict in real life, your dream may be your mind's way of safely rehearsing or processing impossible choices and inner values. The dystopia may mirror feelings of powerlessness in society or the breakdown of shared norms. Being forced to participate in systemic evil mirrors real-world anxieties about complicity, whether politically, economically, or socially. Your decision not to comply, even under threat, is a powerful reclaiming agency, a self-corrective act against moral disintegration. And that was something I forgot to mention in the description of the dream. I distinctly remember telling somebody in the dream, I'm not going to do it. They can't force me to, and I will die if they try to force me to. All right. So, and that is an extreme. No, it's not extreme. That's an accurate representation of the way I feel today. My gas meter, my give a bleep meter is broken. Seriously, it is completely broken, and I'm at that age where my mortality is starting to creep up on me. I'm starting to think about it a little bit more. My children are established and they have families of their own, and they can survive without me. And Yoda and I made the decision to do what we did. And if anybody doesn't know what we did, so 3.5, almost 4 years ago, they were going to force me as a government employee, a federal employee, to take the jab. And they were saying by the next January of 2021, was for 21, January 21, we were going to have to do it. And in October of 2020, we sold a $500,000 piece of property that we had been working on for almost 15 years. We bought I'd say it my burner downer. It wasn't it's not a fixer upper. It's a burner downer if you want to know the truth. But we got a good price on it. It was like our first property in the fact that when I walked it, I could see the potential, right? I've spent the better part of almost 4 years cleaning up somebody else's stuff. And we're finally this year starting to do homesteading stuff and getting back on track, and it's frustrating. I'm not going to lie. It's exciting for me, but it's extremely frustrating because whenever we came into this community, like 15, 17 years ago, whenever we first met everybody, with the exception of one family, well, there were a couple, there's another one that was a lifelong farmer. So he's done it his entire life, but between those two, we were the only ones that were homesteading. We were the only ones that had livestock. We were the only ones, and so when compared to everybody else, we were way ahead. We were living on property. We weren't in a little subdivision or a suburb like a lot of people. And I felt good about where we were. And then we gave it all up. And even today, even after 3.5 years of working on this place, I look at everybody else and where they were whenever we gave everything up and where they are now and where we are. And it's frustrating. I'm happy for them. And I am extremely happy. If you guys go over to Life Done Free and watch their live last night, because they were showing pictures of the food forest and they were talking about all the stuff that they're getting and everything, how everything's going. And it was great. It was a fantastic, if it doesn't motivate you, nothing will. Seriously. It was something to see, and I listened to it last night when I was out in the field taking care of the animals, and I spent 7-8 hours outside today. Maybe not that long, but I spent a lot of time outside working on the garden and taking care of animals and stuff. And it was fun. It was hotter than hell. It was 98 degrees with about 80% humidity, so it was like breathing soup.
I think we were like 101 or something like that.
Yep, exactly. But it was motivating. So that's where we're coming from. And so you can see a lot of these things that I'm talking about have been rolling around in my brain pan for quite a while now. So ChatGPT said the emotional themes of the dream were moral clarity born of horror, the breaking point of obedience, the sanctity of family versus state control, and the transformation from passive participant to armed resistor. That last one is very interesting because it says armed resistor, and if you kind of infer what those three interpretations we're talking about, and there's another interpretation coming up. All right, but if you look at that, it says the warrior and armed resistor. Okay, guys, listen. You do not have to have a firearm or a club or a knife to be armed. Right now, the armed resistor is somebody who's armed with knowledge and moral clarity. And this is something that I when I was debating, I used to wake up, I worked for the DOD, and I used to wake up every morning for about 1.5 years thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing? I'm literally working for the beast. How many people in the chat, put a one in the chat if you've ever faced that dilemma where you're actually working for the beast, and it was hard. It was hard to go to work every day and reconcile that. And don't get me wrong, I love my job. I loved working with the service members. I did direct support for the Missouri National Guard, and the guys at the Armory and at the armies that I met were some of the best people in the world. All right. So don't get me wrong on that point, but I was working for the beast, but you can be a resistor and be armed, not necessarily with a gun, guys. And the passive participant, how many people in the chat or how many people watching this in replay are a passive participant to what goes on in your communities? I'm still to a point now. I'm still passive in a lot of respects, because here's the deal. This is one thing, Rescue, this you'll like this one. I don't want to be they won't leave me alone. The whole reason why I moved out to the country and I started homesteading was so I could be left alone. And I didn't have to interact with society. I didn't have to interact with the government. The whole reason I vote is so that the elector that I vote for can get into office and do the job he's supposed to do without me having to frickin' hold his hand or keep him in check.
Well, you got to raise those kind of people that you can rely on.
Yep.
So it's a societal labor pool that you're pulling from, regardless of what job title you apply it to, whether it's politician, policeman, firefighter, electrician, cashier. It's the societal labor pool, and we have a moral collapse. We've our moral compass is out of kilter. The information that comes out has people totally. Me and the missus talk about it, but then see, we don't watch like TV, and we just kind of sometimes sit and we're talking with the dogs and the chickens and shit. So we don't and I don't dive into a lot of stuff. So we just kind of keep things on the surface. And I still say, man, 2016, when that dude come down that escalator and everybody went into freak out mode, and all of a sudden all the media flip switch, all these actors and singers and news people, it's the way information just immediately flipped script. And I think it messed the way people consumed information after that. Mm-hmm. And it's caused such a big blur. It's like, and no offense, I'm gonna use you as an example.
Go ahead.
Okay, so like you guys relocated from where you were, but like when you guys moved there, did you look into the county seat and like how the county was ran, or did you just look at the property and believe in this populated going to a rural? So is it more location? Because I think a lot of people are still waking up to your voice, your vote, and how you vote actually matters.
Okay, you know what? That's a fair question. So one of the reasons that we moved here was because of talking to Tag and other people that lived here. This was a very, very freedom-minded area. You know, the county government did not do a lot to interfere with people's lives, and it was honestly, in the past it was a good place. Problem is, 3 years ago we got 3 county commissioners in who, for lack of a better word, are petty tyrants and narcissists. Right, and we've got a new one. There's a 4th one into the mix now, and I don't know enough about her to give my opinion. But the other ones,
what are y'all's term limits on the commissioners?
There are none.
Well, but I mean, like, okay, so what's your cycle then? Is it every year or 2, 4?
2 every 2 years? Yeah, because we've had 2 votes since we've been here. There's been 2 votes since we've been here. You know, no.
See, and I don't know, and I it wasn't until all this has been gone down, but you kind of dip into like the Federalist Papers and some of that stuff, and you just kind of the Hillsdale College, kind of going through some of them courses. You know, it's to remember that there's no instant gratification, so there's no quick fix. And that's actually when you kind of listen to the way the founding fathers laid everything down. You're going to have a rough time, but that's supposed to be like the alarm going off that wakes you up, and then that area gets together. And I think that's where some areas are just so, it's like you take Washington, Oregon, California, you literally have a convinced population that they don't even show up. It's like, There's nothing we can do. Well, that's a cancer, and the more you let that spread, but there's still some areas where there's more impact than others. And so like you guys just went through a hiccup kind of thing. But you now are aware, if you start gathering the voices, you change the dynamic. So you can correct a problem. And it can happen. You know,
and I've got a good story about that too, man. I told you what was going on here. Now I'm going to tell you how it's been resolved. Skanes even says it was a very freedom-minded area when she decided to move there, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Skanes, about 2 years ago you started making the decision, and then you've been slowly working towards it. The area began to change rapidly. Yes, it did. Like, I'm going to say the last 2 years. The first year we were here, it no complaints whatsoever. The last 2 years have been very alarming.
Well, yes. I think about it though, when you take kind of like the personal interaction, you know, so you kind of got that personal tie. But look at the mechanics. It's easy enough to do. If people weren't really watching, who's running, what are you really saying? What do you believe in? Let me ask some key questions to really kind of see where you stand with some stuff, maybe a voting record if it's a recumbent kind of thing. But so you kind of got dealt this hand, but now this is your rallying call. And all I can reference is like down here, and I get it. I'm slowly coming to terms that whenever I talk, I yes, I live in a bubble. It almost feels like sometimes I'm in a little 50,000 person county bubble in Southeast Texas, but it got me thinking. And as I watch our commissioner hearings and the courts, and I start paying attention to the topics, because I think, see, that'll be like my alarm when I start seeing maybe some kind of oversight, overreach, or we're fixing to institute some new restriction across the county. All of a sudden, that's when your senses go up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got that benefit as of right now, you know. And so that's, I just, because, you know, and sometimes I do get frustrated, but it's just, one, I'm not used to this. When I started a few years doing this is the first. Other than that, everything was a conversation of real life, and it is what it is.
Right. So, you know, our county population as of 2024 was only about 13,500 people. It's gone up a little.
Now, in Kansas, do they have incorporated counties and unincorporated counties based off of population?
No, all the counties are incorporated.
Okay. See, here we have, depending on the population of it, you have unincorporated or incorporated. Well, that changes a whole nother chapter of dynamics. You know,
Mm-hmm.
If you're incorporated, okay, well, there's different battles to take. Unincorporated, there's most of your freedom.
Yep. So the other thing in the emotional themes I found, I love this, the breaking point of obedience. I want everybody to think about that. Think about your personal life. Think about everything you're going through, and everything that society and the government and your family wants you to do. Where's your line? You need to know where your line is. And more importantly, you need to know why you're drawing that line. And that's a thing that all three of those interpretations alluded to, was me drawing a line. And I drew a line. I drew a line back in August of 2020 that would not be crossed. All right. And I've been drawing lines on moral and ethical issues ever since then. Now, I held moral and ethical views before that. My commitment, if you want to call it that, was not the greatest. You know, kind of a live and let live type of thing. No more. So ChatGPT, after it gave me all this stuff, it had some questions. It reflected questions. First question: is there a real world situation you feel pressured to comply with something you find ethically wrong? This is where, going back to what Rescue mentioned earlier, specifically recently, yes. And like I said before, for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, yes. Recently, and I've told the story before, the county commissioners decided that they were going to stick a finger in the property owners and taxpayers' eye in the county, and they made a resolution basically saying that they were going to use warrantless searches to enter people's property, and if you refuse, they were going to go get a administrative warrant and do it anyway. It was nothing in the actual application, because it was about code enforcement. Nothing about the resolution was, as far as that went, was new. It was already on the books. That stuff's already on the books. The way it was written was specifically, you will do this or else. That was what it was. All right. And that was the wrong thing for them to say. There's the wrong way to do it. The way they did it without any public discussion, and they just laid it out there and said, you will comply. Well, Tag and I, this kind of bothers me in retrospect. Tag and I were the only two people in the county that I know of that put in Kansas Open Record Act request, which is, they had, we asked for everything, all the conversations that took place between everybody involved on how this came about. And I just, the initial response from the county was, screw you, lawyer client privilege. You can't have any of it. Well, as pressure mounted, one of the commissioners kind of started changing his tune. The second one was adamant about it as of last Tuesday when they had the budget open house. And the third one, when he was saying how they were going to stick to it, she just sat there bobbing her head up and down like one of those bobbleheaded dolls. All right. They finally, yesterday, day before. No, it was yesterday. Yesterday they sent an email, carbon copying Tag and I on the same email. Very lazy way to do it as far as I'm concerned. And released some of the information we asked for. The commissioner said, yeah, go ahead and do it. That came after they decided to rescind the ordinance or the resolution. So we won. We got enough people involved. We got enough people riled up about it, and enough people said something and made their lives so uncomfortable that we won, and they rescinded it. Now,
see, that's the way it's supposed to work.
Yep. We have the right to petition. The Sixth Amendment. We have the right to petition the government, and that's exactly what we did. Now, is it a complete win? No, it's not, because I guarantee you, number one, they're going to start scheming how they can do something again, and number two, I at least one of the commissioners is a very petty and vindictive person. So he will.
Most battles are just one bite at a time.
Yeah.
So that's the thing though is, and it's easy because there's so much stuff out there to make it sound like, you don't stand a chance, but that's actually reference to the classic example. This is what you do. You gather voices, you bring people aware of the problem, and you have a loud enough of a voice that focuses not with just all the bullshit talk, but focuses on the problem, and you get the attention, and now you end up with a solution, because if you push it to the point, so far, we have a rule of law, and we have a constitution. Now, yes, you got to push hard for it, because some areas have been more, dude, can you imagine if you had to go into Seattle and try to clean it up? That ain't cleaning up in just like one or two elections. That's so embedded. So there's just this is an existing problem. It's like you brought up. We've been going through this for a while. So there's areas that are tougher than others, and some that ain't so tough. But as long as the juice is worth the squeeze, then that's all that matters.
Yep. So the second question it asked was, have you recently felt torn between group loyalty and personal values? Now, on the face of this looks like my community. Am I torn between the community and myself? No. Now we don't always agree on everything. This may shock everybody in the chat. I'm very opinionated, and I don't have a hard time telling people my opinion. All right.
No way. Say it ain't so.
I hate meetings. I hate meetings. 90% of any information that can be passed on in a meeting, in my opinion, can be passed on via an email. All right. With that said, I go to the monthly meetings unless I've got something going on and I can't make it. I go to the monthly meetings, and I said that I told everybody I didn't like meetings, and I was asked, well, why do you come? It's because it's my responsibility. All right. I have a responsibility to these people. They're part of my community, and quite frankly, they've kind of an extended family, if you will. All right. So, but with that said, I was raised my entire life to serve the country. My dad and my uncle were Marines, and I grew up hearing about, service like that. I went to a military school. My parents taught at Wentworth Military Academy in Lexington, Missouri. So I was fortunate enough to go. There's no way in hell we could have afforded the tuition had they not been teaching there. But I spent 6 years there. Well, 5.5 years there, from junior high up until a one semester junior college. And I trained at 14. I did my first military camp. I went to Fort Leonard Wood with junior RTC. First time I shot an M16, age of 14. Graduated high school, went into the early commissioning program at the age of 17. Went to Fort Knox. Me and my buddy were the out of 2,500 people, we were the two youngest people in the battalion, and we were both 17. He was 2 weeks younger than I was, and we won they gave 1% of the battalion a scholarship, and both of us won one of those scholarships, and then I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps. Then I felt a duty, I wanted to get back and help the armed services. And so I spent 3.5 years working for the DOD, and when in July of 23, when I felt like, where I came to the realization that everything had been a lie. Yeah, I've got a huge conflict between group loyalty. I'm not loyal. The United States government can go suck it as far as I'm concerned. I'm loyal to the nation of America. That is what I'm loyal to. The United States government is not an enemy, but it is not, at this point in time, the balance sheet between good and bad is markedly into the bad category as far as the United States government goes, in my opinion. And
that's some of that blurred thinking that society has. You say, like I believe in America. Well, they think you're talking about the elected people and all that cluster. They don't get it as in the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you say something positive about Trump, they assume you worship him. And it's like, Nope, it's not that. I like that policy. But see, that's the rhetoric that's been pumped out. So that's the language that's been spun out through all the media outlets and all the different little shows that have started. That's the typical talk. And it's losing sight of that vote, man, the vote. And you need to really probably ought to do it. You ought to do it like a little short on just kind of the highlight of that, on how you face that and you gather together to push back, and you actually won against it. It just kind of references the actual, like, damn it, you can do it. See, look, they just did it. It's like, that's the way I feel.
And anybody that hasn't heard this before, I'm gonna tell you my thinking on this. So if you look up the Webster definition of a nation, it's a group of people that have either language, ethnicity, something holds them together. A country is a governmental body meant to govern a nation. All right. So there's two distinct things there. So the United States of America is the country. The nation is America. And there are two Americas that exist right now. One that believes in the Constitution and the ideas of the Founding Father, and the other that is a post-constitutional America that believes in the hierarchy of man and the government. All right. And these two things cannot exist in the same place at the same time for very long. There's going to be a reckoning at some point. All right. And we're closer to it now than we've ever been since the Civil War.
I used to say, I love my country. I despise my administration. No, I don't despise the administration as much right now. I'm still waiting to see.
Right. Okay. So the next question is, and considering the nominal age of our viewers, this one's probably going to hit home to some people. Are you grappling with fears about aging, generational loss, or authority figures? Like I said, I turned 59. I woke up the other day. I've told this story. Everything in my body that hurts on a rotating basis hurt at the same time, and I felt old for the first time. Right?
So it didn't hurt the day before when you woke up, though?
No, I have one or another thing hurts every day when I wake up.
You're giving in to the psychosis.
No, but dude, everything hurt. This is the first time I told Angela. It's the first time I actually felt old. All right, and then generational loss.
You're letting it in your head, brother.
Yeah, generational loss. I came to the realization that, we're only at best case 3 generations away from being forgotten. A lot of people are only 2 generations. Some people are 1 generation away, and that if you're, and this really strikes home with men, every man that was raised properly wants to leave a legacy. All right. And the thought of being forgotten should terrify you into action, and seriously. So, and yes, I've been dealing with that. I've been dealing with that big time. And then the last one, do you feel your actions or inaction might have real consequences that weigh on your conscience? Yeah. I made myself a target by putting in a Quora request. I put a target on my back. I purposely put a target on my back. Whenever I made the decision to give everything up, I put a target on my back. Every time I go on this channel and I talk about stuff like what we're kind of tonight going through the dream interpretation, what caused all this, I'm putting a target on my back. And yeah, I just want to be left alone. I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So the verdict. Here's the verdict. The warrior awakens. I like that. This dream isn't about killing. It's about refusing to become part of the machine. It's about saying no when everyone else nods yes. Your subconscious tested your limits and you passed. You armed up, not just physically, but morally. It's the hero's arc mid-transformation. And yes, it is. I am going through a transformative part of my life. I am transforming on myself. I'm becoming the person I should have been 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Right? So, okay. Now this is where it gets really interesting, Rescue. So ChatGPT asked me if I want to go deeper and explore some other stuff. Here's the question I posed. I'm going to read it verbatim. Question. For the last year or two, I have been learning about Stoicism and trying to incorporate it deliberately into my life. Last night, I put on a 2-hour-plus video to sleep to on the topic. I fell asleep within 5 minutes, and the entire video played through while I slept. Could this have contributed to the dream? It's almost as though the answer was almost as though ChatGPT got excited. Absolutely, and quite likely, yes. Your exposure to Stoicism, the Stoicism video during sleep could very well have influenced the tone, structure, and moral arc of your dream. Here's why. A bit of neuroscience and Stoic philosophy woven in. Okay, how sleep and input interact. Sleep and dream encoding. During non-REM and REM cycles, your brain consolidates memories, processes emotions, and files away experiences from the day. If audio plays during sleep, particularly in earlier light sleep, your brain may register fragments of the idea, language, and tone. While you may not consistently remember this video or consciously remember this video, your subconscious may have latched onto Stoic themes, virtue, suffering, endurance, and moral clarity and duty. So here's the lesson to learn here, guys. If you sleep, if you have to have the TV on or something on when you go to sleep, if you're watching crappy network TV or you're listening to some sort of pablum on YouTube, something that has no nutritional value emotionally or spiritually, it's going to go into your head. If you fall asleep to that, that's what you're going to be programmed for. The neuroplasticity of it all will encode that directly into your brain and how it works.
That's probably why you feel so old and so like, oh my God, I'm 59. Because see, this is the typical media, the typical talk. 60. Oh my God, AARP. You're elderly, looking into retirement. Don't you need some life? Look at this. So you kind of get mind jacked into going, man, I'm 60. I'm old, and so it's kind of like you psych yourself up to being sore. And I only say that because I just rolled into 60, but about the time I hit 60, God also slapped me upside the head and proceeded to motivate me and let me know that, you know what, the last time he said that the human race was good for $1.20. So I don't understand where we keep getting off shortcutting ourselves mentally, right, telling us we're only good for X amount of years. So that's my take on it. But then that's just hitting 60. And before that, she could come in here and she'd tell you that I woke up every day going, holy shit, dude, I feel 70 years old. I feel 80. I talked it, but you know what? I refuse to do that now. I'll be damned. I'm only halfway through this little journey.
Yep. Well, and you know, like I said before, the waking up and everything hurting at once, first time it ever happened, and it was first time I felt old, and it was before the dream happened. So I'm positive that had something to do with.
Maybe that was testing you to see if you were going to kind of go on were you going to have more faith that no, it's just I'll get through this, or were you going to start feeling like you're older and kind of give up more?
Well, I went out.
The devil plays in many ways.
That was last Sunday. And I didn't go to church. I should have, but I just felt terrible. But by 2:00, I was like, I have to go outside. I have to go outside and I have to do something. And I went outside and spent about 5 hours working outside. And I came back inside and I didn't feel old anymore.
That's because that's God's world out there. That's not man world. That's God's world.
Well, and listen, guys, if you're ever feeling old, go out and do some gardening. Gardening will make you feel younger. It just does. I don't know what it is about it. You know. Okay, so ChatGPT reinterpreted the dream with the stoicism in mind, and here's what it came up with. It says your dream strongly mirrors stoic moral tension. So it gave me a list. It's got on one side it's got the dream element, and on the other time it's got possible stoic influences. Okay, so and you guys think about the world we live in and tell me what you think about this. So the dystopian decaying world is a symbolic reflection of a world without virtue or logos. The demand to kill your mother is a direct affront to the Stoic idea of natural affection, okiosis, and duty to family. And remember, my mother was not necessarily my mother. It was tradition and nurturing and the moral values of the country, all right, or the nation. So the initial compliance echoes epitatic detachment, but taken too far, an excess of resignation. How many people do you know, like you were mentioning earlier, Rescue, how many people do you know are just resigned to the fact that things are just the way they are with our country?
Oh, yeah.
How many people voting doesn't work? You know? Absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I wasn't. I was just saying quite a few because that's kind of actually. I had to just step away from some because that's just the cycle, and you just kind of notice it's like 4 years later, and it's like, well, wait a minute, this is like getting stuck in the mud, and you're still hitting the gas pedal. It's like, you know, at some point you got to open the door, get out, and take a look at what you're actually stuck in.
That's a great analogy, man. I'm going to consider that stolen. Okay, so the next one, growing resistance, the Stoic awakening, recognition of moral duty even in suffering. So Angela and I, she alluded to it earlier in the chat. Angela and I had the discussion, and I shared it with the group, or with tagging a couple other people. You know, we did not move here to be the tip of the spear. Tag made the comment that you know, we're the tip of the spear in fighting the tyranny that the county government is trying to put in. And I've been the tip of the spear. I've been the tip of the spear multiple times. I don't want to be the tip of the spear anymore. Right? I want to, like I said, I want to be left alone.
Do you have a belief in God?
Yes, I do.
Then it's not up to you. You're going to be used in God's choice.
Exactly. And that's what I told everybody. I said, I was put here with me wanting to be left alone and do my own thing, but God put us here so that we could make a difference, so that we could be the tip of the spear. All right. We've got a moral duty to do what we're supposed to do, even if it hurts us in the short term, or in the, you know, if in the long term. You know, not a single one of Jesus' disciples, you know, the 12 apostles, not a one of them escaped execution and a violent death. Right. They died for their beliefs. You know, and the question is,
piss off.
You know, hey, kiss off. You know, and it's easy to sit here and go, I would die for my beliefs. You know, it's dead simple. You see people say it all the time. But that one of the things that COVID did, and it's going to happen again, not necessarily a COVID-like thing, but a circumstance is going to come up when people are going to be forced to make a decision. COVID showed exactly who people were. You know,
It's just the same thing that they went back through in the day whenever, Muslims coming through, and it's like, are you a Christian or not? And you're looking at the face and it's like, oh no, if I say no, then somebody's going to be really mad at me. So, but if I say yes, then he's going to chop my head off, and people would just bend over and go, yes, I'm a Christian. And then they just took it because that's at that moment, it's your faith, it's your belief.
right. And again, this goes back to the why. You know, I mentioned the why at the beginning. You know, if we believe what we say believe, and it's Christianity, the Constitution, anything. If we believe what we say we believe, then we're going to behave in a certain way. And by behaving in a certain way, it's going to reinforce what we believe. And it's just a self-licking ice cream cone. But if I honestly think that these moral values are worth dying for, then I'm going to live by that. And I talked about drawing lines earlier, you know, and that's one of the things that this dream touched on. You know, it drawing lines puts you in a position where if you're morally stuck on an idea, is that the right way to put it? If you're convicted, if you're truly convicted about something, you don't let that line be crossed without doing. That's why I don't making threats is ridiculous. They're counterproductive. You know, I don't make threats. What I do is I tell somebody, if A happens, this is going to be the result. I'm not threatening you. I'm not telling you not to do what you want to do. I'm letting you know that this is what I'm going to have to do.
There's consequences to your decisions.
Right.
Choose wisely.
You know, and that was the way I raised my kids, and they did not like that because they had people in their lives that would give them ultimatums, but didn't back it up, didn't follow through. You know, my kids, by the time they were 12, 13 years old, you know, except for the point in time when they lost their ever living minds, they understood that. They didn't like it, but they understood it.
Yeah.
You know, okay. The last one in here was gearing up, risking death. This is what we were just talking about. Living by virtue over self-preservation, echo of Cato the Younger, who defied tyranny to the end. You know, I've said it before, and I'll reiterate it. There is no political solution to what's going on. We have to change the culture. If we do not change the culture, it's gonna come to a head, and it will go kinetic. When that is and how it's going to happen, I have no idea. I don't wish for it. I understand how disastrous that would be because we do not know what's going to come out the other end of that.
Yeah.
You know, we'd like to think that the good guys win. History proves time and time again.
There's one of the oldest, most popular books on the planet says it ain't going to work out.
Well, in the end, it works out.
Well, yeah, but not on man's terms.
Yeah, not on our terms, absolutely. And this is so. Here's something to think about if you guys ever dream and you remember your dream. Your subconscious may have built a moral theater using Stoic scaffolding, especially if you've been saturating yourself with the philosophy by day and even by night. The moral theater thing. I look back at a lot of my dreams that I remember. I've got some of them. Yeah, it's theater. It really is theater, and it's your brain trying to work out what's going on. You know, and it goes on. It talks about neuroscience and Stoic practice. So I've deliberately been practicing stoicism. That's neuroplasticity in action. Neuroplasticity is you repeat actions or thoughts over and over and over again, and you can rewire your brain.
Well, muscle memory.
Okay.
That's basically the same thing.
Oh man, I don't
repetitive.
I don't want to chase that. I don't want to go off on that tangent. Oh,
because your repetitive stuff is gonna. But see, that's where your dreams gather their information.
Mm-hmm.
So the images and the story that your dream will tell you, it's off of the media that you've watched, shows, movies, life interactions, scenery that you see, because that's the collective. It's no different than your computer. You had the raw hard drive. It wasn't until you started downloading and installing shit. Next thing you know, 10 years later, you look at that hard drive and it's full of all kinds of crap. Well, that's the human brain. As we go through our life journey, we're seeing things, whether it's through a movie, TV, real life, or whatever. But these are the scenes and the images that we've collected. So when our subconscious is going to talk to us, it's going to reference those images. And it's going to try to, like your gearing up thing at the end. I think that that's the subconscious way of, because you're not going to die in your dream. And so for you, dying was going to be either you're going to see your mom die, or you're going to have to. So that's why that gear up was your cutoff point. Just like when you're falling, you don't hit the ground. You cut off before you hit the ground. If you're getting jacked, and you cut off before you actually go, because it's just, I think it's the subconscious connection to life. It's like, nope, you can't. You don't want to die in your subconscious. You might even really die then. Right.
Well, we don't know, because if you die, if you do die in your dream, we don't know, because the person isn't there to tell us.
We just log you down that you died in your sleep.
Yeah.
How do we know what was going down when you went to sleep?
Hey, do me a favor. Next time I'm on your live, ask me about muscle memory. I will give you a dissertation on that. Okay. The next thing it said was playing Stoic philosophy while you sleep could act as a kind of passive priming, feeding moral language and ideas into your deeper mental framework. Again, if you're watching crappy TV, you're going to get crappy ideas. You're not going to, you're shortchanging yourself. And then the dream might have been your mind's way of testing those ideas in the most extreme scenario imaginable. And yes, it was. When I woke up, it was disturbing. The whole dream was very disturbing to me, and which is one of the reasons why I decided to do this thought exercise here. So what does this mean for me, for Grumpy G? What does that mean for me? So this was not a random horror dream. It was a simulation of virtue under fire. It suggests that Stoicism is penetrating deeper than you realize, not just as a daily framework, but as a moral instinct, even in dream logic. Your refusal to comply, even with no audience, is at great personal cost, is a peak Stoic behavior. That goes back, that one right there. We don't do something when nobody's watching, or we behave the way we behave, not because somebody's watching, but because they're not watching. All right. We don't, when the eyes aren't on us, we don't change our behavior. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people, I'll admit it, I'll raise my hand right here. I am guilty of that.
I'm probably more cautious in my choice of words interacting with people, just because communication is kind of lacking nowadays. So I've realized, I've learned. So, I mean, and I guess you could go, oh, Rescue, you lie. No, I just choose my battles wisely.
Yeah. Well, and some things just aren't worth arguing over, to be honest with you. So it gives me a quote from Epictetus, which is he was born a slave.
Excuse me.
He was a Roman slave, and so you've got Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor of Rome, and you got Epictetus, who was a slave. coming to the same conclusion. So that's a testament to Stoicism. But he says it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. You change your opinion about the call. It's talking to me. That ChatGPT is talking to me. You changed your opinion about the calling mid-dream and acted with full awareness of the consequences. Think about it. How much cognitive dissonance do we see in the world today? These people, they have these beliefs that run completely counter to what they truly believe, and it causes cognitive dissonance and it causes the anger and stuff.
Oh, yeah, this is so upside down right now. That's why I said, man, I think 2016 and the way that the messaging went and the way that the brains interpreted that, it's like it short-circuited a lot of brains.
Absolutely.
Just went off the pattern. Common sense, that used to be a running joke for my whole life, was like, damn, we don't even apply common sense. It ain't so common. But, oh my God, 2025, it's legit.
One of the common theme through all those interpretations was me acting, me taking action on things that my complicity, erasing my complicity, me taking a moral stand, drawing those lines I was talking about. That's the theme running through all those interpretations. And this ChatGPT gave me this. I did some more stuff. I had it make a script. I was going to do a video on this. I was like, nah, I'll do a live. But it gave a final thought here as we were getting done. And I posted this on the community as a community post the other day, Tuesday. Marcus Aurelius: waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. And I think that's if anything, that's the takeaway from this dream and going through the interpretive process. And I wanted to share one of the reasons why I wanted to do this live stream and talk about it was because I wanted to share that idea with people and hopefully encourage people to do that.
Well, that's the phrase, be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
That's, and then that's what I say. See, this is what I and I know I've ruffled feathers in my lives, but this is, and I guess just where I'm at in my redneck little way down here in Texas, but it's just, I look, where are the examples? Because I spend time with little man, my grandson. And then I look at my son. He doesn't do everything I like, but then that's so, it is what it is. He's a grown man. But it's like, so what example is being set for all the youth, depending on whatever, I don't give a shit, from 0 to whatever, right below whoever is listening is, So when they listen to you or they see you, whether it's in the store, doing something, what example of righteous behavior and character are they seeing? Are people actually walking it? Are they displaying it? Like, is that the example that the youth are seeing around them? Because that's what, with the digital platforms, it's so easy to get up and make shit sound good. But do you actually walk the talk? Because that's what it's going to take to get that change. It's going to take walking the talk. My running joke is how kids suffer from road rage before they even got a driver's license, because that's what they grew up listening to from the front seat up there. So, when you put that in perspective, it's like me and the missus, you talk about, like, people get a kick out of when kids say cute little words. Shit. Oh, look, that's so cute. Well, is it going to be cute when they're 12 and you're like, it's time, you need to clean your room? That's bullshit. Oh, wait, it's not funny no more? Well, what was the picture painted? And so, and I know it makes me an ass, but I'm that guy, because it's all about the example. What do you expect? You can only talk your way out of shit. At some point, you got to walk the talk. Well, we got a group of kids that's going to be coming up. They're going to be the ones running the shit.
Mm-hmm.
So do they even have a foundation to work off of? Or is Antifa, BLM, Scream, it's all lost, everybody's a loser, America sucks? Is this their role models? I freaking grew up with John Wayne and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Pappy Bowington was my damn hero. So what's their hero? The pink-haired lady down there that was throwing Molotov cocktails at the ICE building, So it's putting things in perspective. And that's why some of the real hardcore channels, I wish they would tone down some of the rhetoric, because you're raising another breed of them is all you're doing.
Right. You just made me realize something.
And sorry about that. I went on a tirade.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Your tirade made me realize something. And it goes back to some of the underlying themes in this dream. One of the things since I started getting into stoicism, and started going back to church and trying to be a better person, somebody that's more consistent in their morals and ethics and more thoughtful. Not thoughtful isn't nice, but thoughtful in okay, why am I doing this? I give more thought to my life. And one of the things that I realized through this process was, I love my children dearly, and I would have died for them, but I was not the best dad. All right. And there's a little bit of guilt there. There's very few things in my life that I wish I could go back and do again. But the way I raised my children, I wish I could go back and do a better job.
There ain't no book on it, brother. We all just have to wing it 24/7, 365.
But I just realized as you were talking about that fits it fits directly into the whole stoic lens, looking at it that way. And then here we're getting close to the end here, Rescue, unless you got some other stuff you want to talk about. But it talks about what my dream did. One of the very last sentences before I quit. It skipped the philosophy lecture and gave you the test. And if you think about it, that's life. That is life in the real world. You're not going to get a philosophy lecture. Life is not going to teach you what your why is. What it's going to do, it's going to put you to the test. And you're either going to rise to your highest level of training, or you're going to fall. Those are the only two. Those are the only two things. So if you have never trained, if you've never given any thought to the moral and ethical questions facing us these days, when that test comes along, and again, this goes back to COVID. When that test comes along, you're going to fail.
Yep.
You can say anything you want to, but whenever brass tacks come, you're gonna fall.
She said, "What? I disagree. You were always present. You have a."
Well, no, I was present. But I did not set a good example a lot of the times.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Grumpy, and I'm only saying this, out of care, brother, because I've actually processed this myself and beat myself up and then kind of come out the other end. And I actually reflected. My mom summed it up for me a long time ago when I used to be mad at my dad. And she said, "I'm going to tell you now, your dad did the best job he could do with what he knew how to do."
Mm-hmm. And that's probably the only thing that keeps me from completely losing it over it. Seriously.
And you got to remind yourself, because you got to remember, man, the world's, and to use the, typical phrase, it's an evil world. So negativity is always waiting to creep over your shoulder. So doubt, despair, self-doubt, all this is just waiting. You kind of got to make sure and remind yourself that you did do the best you could. You didn't do anything bad intentionally. You did the best job you could. Right. So you need to remind yourself there's no guilt.
Still doesn't change the desire to be able to go back and change it.
Then you set this, you change now, and you talk about it. Talk about it, share with your kids and your grandkids.
And I do that, and I'm trying to teach my grandkids, limited interaction I have with them. I'm trying to teach them these things. And then we've got a bunch of kids here in the community, and I constantly talk whenever I'm around them. I constantly talk about these things. No Quarter says something that I think is interesting. So life itself is a test. Absolutely. It's not about doing good, but being true to yourself. And that true to yourself.
Should be both.
Who is yourself? Again, that goes back to the why. Why do you believe what you believe? You know, and if what you believe isn't good, and that's not probably the right word to use, but I'll use it in this context. You know, if you're lacking as a person, you should be trying to change it. You know, you should have the moral clarity to say, hey, I need to fix this.
Yeah. Well, see, that's where my thing with when it comes to a relationship with God, and people go through all the do's and the don'ts, and oh my gosh, should I do this? It's like, man, you know what? In all honesty, if you can get the first two down, there's so much of the others that just fall into place. Because think about the first two. Love God with all your heart. So now you're going to love God with all your heart. And then you're going to love your neighbor as yourself. If you literally walk and practice those, how can you be negative with the other things? How can you love God with all your heart and then talk smack to the person down the road? How do you love God with all your heart and then ugly to your spouse or ugly to your kids? So, man,
yeah, you bring that up. So we do a men's Bible study every Thursday, and we're in 1 Samuel right now, and it's really kind of weird. Yeah, you know, I believe one of the reasons why I believe in God is because so many things in my life have been providential that I cannot explain why they happen this way. But I had this dream and I did this little thought exercise, and we did 1 Samuel chapter 25, and one of the themes in that chapter is following God, and following God is the undercurrent. It doesn't directly say this, but one of the commentaries said this. But following God is the beginning of wisdom. Understanding that you're not in charge, and by having the wisdom of loving God and following Him, you understand who's in charge, and that gives you moral clarity to do what's right. Because the 1 Samuel is about David and King Saul. And it's very it was very telling that came up after that dream happened. Oh, so guys, that's about it. I'm glad you showed up, and the we only had, I think the most I saw in here was 17 people, but you guys were an important part of this, and I hope that by going through this that I was able to give you a look inside my brain and see why I do the things on this channel and I say the things on this channel that I say, and why I make the decisions that I make. You know, a lot of people told me I was crazy selling our property and moving out here. A lot of people did. Just flat out told me I was nuts. You know, but it was the decision that I had to make. You know, and quite frankly, had we had a community in Missouri like what we have out here, we'd still be over on the Missouri side. You know, I still would have had to sell my property, making the decision that I was making, because I wasn't taking the shot. Period. You know, never mind the fact that my doctor flat out told me that it would kill me, because he was talking about all the clots and everything even before it was talked about. He told me it would kill me. But that aside, the government, nobody has the right to force me to put something in my body.
Right.
You know, giving up that ultimately what happened was the government made people give up their sovereignty.
Well, they saw that with Obamacare, which I remember when that passed. I wasn't even into politics, but it passed. And just the simplicity of what just happened. And she'd come in here, she'd start laughing because she could remember, dude, I was stomping, I was screaming. I'm going, are you out of your mind? So does America just not realize what just happened? The government just passed a law saying you better buy this product. We don't offer it by any means, but you better buy it or else. Does that not like bother anybody? Like, say what? And I remember that with Obamacare, dude. I'd go to work and he would go, oh, whatever, Brian. I'd go, no, I'm sorry. Can y'all not process that shit?
I mean, you know what I did when that happened?
Buy something that they provide. They don't even provide this shit.
You know what I did whenever that happened? And this was probably the early part of my true awakening. So they passed that and they were talking about it. Chris Stegall was still on the radio here in Kansas City. And I called into the show and I gave my full name and announced to the entire Kansas City listening audience that I would not comply, that if it came down to it, that I would not comply. And he actually made a comment about me doxing myself. Right. He actually, and I knew that. I knew when I got on there, but my train of thought was if I announce it to all these people, then I will have to follow through with it.
Right.
And I never did it. Fortunately, I was never put to that test.
Well, see, that's me neither. It's like the little tirade I did over it. It wasn't even like a threat to us. Hell, I have Blue Cross Blue Shield for everybody through my shit and stuff. So, you know, and so, but it was just, see, once again, it's just paying attention to things you hear. And it's like, I heard that, and that just, it's like my general thinking. I wasn't a political person, never have been by any means, you know, but it was just the fact of, wait, a federal government just made a law that you have to buy something. You have to do this or else. What kind of shit is that? And it was just, and how smooth it went through. And I was like, wow. I mean, I didn't look up again for a while. It wasn't until Trump did his little announcement. And then there was a story on the Today Show. I don't remember what the story was. I just remember that moment because that was kind of, I guess, since people refer to it as the wake-up call. I mean, that's kind of when but I saw it in a different way. It's just, it was like, holy shit, the media just totally flipped switch. Like somebody just hit a master switch to these people. Cause I get up early and I always have since before her. And so I remember listening to the early Today Show while I was looking at schematics and stuff, drinking coffee. They talked about a story and it was kind of like listening. And then she got up like an hour and a half later. She comes walking in the kitchen, we're talking, and all of a sudden that story come back on. But now it's the Today Show, you know, the main one. And it was like, and then here comes that story, only they changed the narrative to it. And I went, wait, and I reached over and I hit the remote, pause. And she goes, what? And I go, that's not what they said earlier. And so I rewound that thing and I go, look, they said this. And it was the complete opposite. And then from then I started kind of listening more when things got said and the way something got portrayed and the way it was put out there. And that's when I started dissecting shit.
All right. Listen, guys, I appreciate we're at an hour and a half now. I appreciate everybody being here and participating. Rescue, thank you for coming up.
Hey, I appreciate you, brother.
I was telling Angela beforehand that I thought it would be better if I had somebody up there that could directly talk to me and interact with me on this and give feedback. Because quite frankly, this could be I think it went really well. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that this was a good conversation. Put a 2 if you think it wasn't. You know, I told her, I said, this is either going to go really well or it's going to be a complete freaking disaster. You know,
I think it did good. It went good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed everybody's interaction. You know, here's the thing. Here's the closing thought, guys. So whenever we bought this house, we paid off all our debt. All right. And we closed on it. I knew it was going to be a work in progress, but Tag asked me how I felt. and I looked at him and I said, free, man. And that's how if you watch videos concerning, or you come to Midwest Preparedness Festival, or you're at some festival and you see somebody running around in a free man shirt, or you see me wearing this, it's backwards, but if you see that, at that point in time, I was talking about being out of debt and owning my stuff, because that was one less thing that the system had over me.
Yep.
You know, but I've come to realize, I've come to realize though, it's not about the physical part of it. It's not. You can be debt free and still be a slave. It's about what goes on up here, right, guys? So this is the battlefield. Everything else that goes on is just ancillary. The real battlefield is what's going on in here. Because if you're not winning up here, then the system or the beast or whatever you want to call it is going to win. It's gonna dictate your actions. You're going to be a slave to it. So you need to get your head right. And I'm not saying do it the way I did. Trust me, I'm not. All I'm doing up here is sharing my experience and giving suggestions. But you need to find a way where you can wear something that says free man and have it actually mean something. Have it be true. Okay? So there's my little preachy soapbox thing at the end of the day. But I appreciate you guys being here, and I hope everybody has a blessed day tomorrow. I'm gonna end the stream here. Rescue, stick around for a moment. I'll talk to you backstage after we're done.
Okay.
Guys, listen.
Just remember, if you wake up in the morning, then make your day a good day, because you're the one in the driver's seat.
Yep, absolutely. And what do you say at the end of all your videos too? Be the change you want to see.
That's it.
Yeah.
Be the change.
And when you put your head on your pillow tomorrow night, you should be able to say to yourself, I'm better off now than I was when I woke up. You should do something tomorrow that's going to make your life better. All right. You guys go out, take care tomorrow, and live a life done free.